How's it going everyone? It is Panjno here, and in today's video we're going to be covering the ultimate guide to setting up and controlling all fans on your PC, from the GPU, case fans, CPU pump, whether you're using air cooling or water cooling, regardless of how complex or simple your cooling setup is for your PC. In this video we're going to be covering all of the necessary steps you need to take full control of your fans to either enhance performance by maximizing cooling potential, or to make your PC quieter, or find a fine balance of both settings. With all of that and more coming straight after a message from today's video sponsor. Tired of seeing the activate Windows watermark, built a new PC, or just want to own Windows at a major discount? Head over to WhoKeys to purchase a Windows 10, 11, Home or Pro OEM key at a major discount. Make sure to use code PAN20 for a further 20% off at checkout, where you can use a safe and secure payment method such as PayPal. Once your key is delivered, simply input the key inside of Windows and boom, you're now completely activated and own Windows forever. You'll now have access to all features and no more watermark. Thanks again to WhoKeys for sponsoring today's video. In this video we are going to be covering the fan control software, but if you're someone that doesn't like to download software on this system and you'd like to avoid this, we're also going to be jumping into the system BIOS and GPU control panels, which should already be installed to your system anyway, and I'll show you how to do it with inside of those programs in case you just don't want to download anything for any reason. Take yourself down to the bottom left hand side, right click on your power button and select restart. What you'll then need to do is power the PC back on and spam the delete key on your keyboard. If delete doesn't work, try F9, and if that doesn't work, try F2. Now it will more than likely look different to the one in which I'm using here. Even if you have a similar gigabyte motherboard, your BIOS could look different, as nearly all motherboards will have a slightly different UI, slightly different options, or completely different looks depending on what brand or manufacturer for the motherboard you've gone with. Regardless of that, most of these settings should be available, they could just be named slightly different things. On the main page of your BIOS, have a look around at the options which are available to you. On this gigabyte motherboard, I can navigate to the bottom right, Smart Fan 6. It may not be called Smart Fan on your system as you may be with a different manufacturer, just look for anything that will allow you to take control of your system fans. Before making any fan changes to the system BIOS, we're quickly going to save the BIOS so we can load this profile later on if for some reason you want to revert it back, if you just want to try this out and decide it's not for you and want to revert everything back at the end. For this, navigate to the bottom right hand side or find an advanced mode where you'll be able to find save and exit. Inside of here for me, I can navigate over to save and exit. What I can then do is navigate down to save profile. Select an empty space. I'm going to be saving this to my profile 5. You can call this anything you wish to do so. Select OK. If we then go into load profiles, you can then see my profile 5 is there, and at any point after this video I want to revert everything back, all you'll need to do is jump into the BIOS, navigate down to load profiles, load the profile you saved, press OK, save and exit the BIOS, and you'll then be reverted back to your normal settings before we change anything. Once you've found your fan settings, we first of all need to make sure that we can actually take control of the system fans. So for this, we're first of all going to navigate over to the fan speed control section. Again, this could be named differently, but you'll more than likely have speed options available somewhere. We're first of all going to select the full speed setting. When you select this setting, you should then be able to hear the fans on your PC start to speed up. If you're not sure if they have, go to the drop down menu again and select a silent or quiet mode. You should hear the fans then start to slow down, and your PC should become quieter. If it hasn't, that's fine. It may mean that we have the wrong fan control mode selected. So what we'll do is navigate around for the options and find anywhere where we can adjust the fan mode from voltage or DC to PWM. First off, start with voltage. Make sure that the setting is applied. In most cases, selecting any setting should automatically apply it, but on this gigabyte motherboard, you actually need to navigate to the top left, select tune all, OK. With voltage selected, go to the fan speed control section, change it to full speed, see if there's any difference. If there is, fantastic. Change it back to silent just to double check. If you still aren't hearing any differences for the fans on your PC, change it from voltage or DC mode to PWM. Go back to the full speed profile, and at that point I can now hear the fans on my PC are becoming faster, so I now know that my PC is using PWM controlled fans. If you are completely unable to adjust the fan speed of your PC, this could be for a few reasons. Reason number one is more than likely the case fans on your system are connected via Molex or SATA. If you are connecting your fans via this method, this will mean that there is only one set voltage going into those fans and you will not be able to control them. The only alternative method for you to be able to change that is to either change out your fans, you can still go with cheap PWM fans, they will work fine, or to see if you have a PWM connector on those fans. If you do have a PWM connector, connect as many of them as possible to your motherboard fan headers, which look similar to this. You'll be able to Google search your motherboard and find the motherboard manual if you're not entirely sure what the fan connectors are, but they'll look very similar to this. Hook your fans up to these connectors and you should then be good to go. If you don't have enough fan headers on your motherboard for the amount of fans you need to plug in, you could look to daisy chain the fans where you plug them into each other and have multiple fans plugged into one header, or you can go with one of my favorite recommendations for PC building, an incredibly useful and inexpensive fan controller hub. You can pick these up on Amazon or Aliexpress, meaning that they're practically available worldwide if you're willing to wait for shipping times. Otherwise, order something on Amazon. You don't have to go for a nice expensive one, you can literally go with something worth a few dollars, where you'll then plug SATA or Molex power into the bottom, plug all of your system fans into the hub, where you'll then have one cable which comes out and connects to your motherboard, only using one motherboard fan header. All of the fans connected to the hub will then be able to be controlled via PWM, which has its benefits over voltage voltage or DC controlled fans because PWM fans can be turned all the way down to 0% and not run if you don't want them to, meaning you could have a virtually silent PC when it's running cool enough. Whereas with voltage fans, they require some level of power always going through them, so they always need to spin, and you'll only have a limited amount of adjustability with those. But what if you're unable to take control of all of the fans in your system and only some speed up? Well, the ones which are speeding up are more than likely going to be your CPU fans, and that's fantastic. We can still take control of those today and at least get some results. With the mode selected which controls the fans on your system, we then need to set a base curve that the system will always run with, regardless if you're going to be using the software later on in the video or not. You could always go to the top right hand side and select from one of the presets such as normal or silent. If you are going to select a preset, I would recommend going with normal. Alternatively, you could select manual control and set your own fan curve. I like to personally set up a custom fan curve, and I like to have a curve similar to this, which means my PC is only using 10% fan speed until it reaches about 22 degrees, where it will then use 30 to 40% fan speed at 40 degrees, 50% at 50 degrees, and it will then quickly speed up, and if the PC manages to reach 65 degrees, it will then utilize 100% speed. If you do have PWM fans, remember that you more than likely will have an option for fan stop, which will allow the fans to actually turn themselves off if you set your graph down to 0% near the bottom. So whether you've chosen to go with one of the presets or you've set up your own custom curve, at this point make sure that if there is a button to do this to tune all of the fans. Otherwise, you'll need to select these settings for every individual fan on the left hand side. I would then need to set the same curve, set the fan control mode to the mode which works for my system, which might not be PWM for you, and everything else. Once you've finished, if there is a button to actually save that fan profile manually, take yourself down to it and select save. You might also be able to save this to the BIOS, which is fantastic, which means the fan curve will stay even if you update the BIOS in the future. Go to the top right hand side to save and exit setup, select this option, select yes, and the PC will then reboot into Windows. At this point, if you are someone that doesn't want to use an extra piece of software on their system, even though it's incredibly lightweight and I would definitely recommend you do so, you can skip this part of the video and head to the timestamp in the bottom right hand side of the screen to jump to the GPU fan section to ensure that you have your system and CPU fans controlled. Take yourself over to Google search fan control and find the REM0O GitHub link. Once you click on it, you should be brought to this webpage where you have the option to download fan control and also support the creator. If you do download this software and you find that you really like it, you find it easy to use, please do consider directly supporting the creator of this application using their links on GitHub like this one here, so you can support future development of this program and support the creator for creating it if you do make use of it on your PC. Please do consider kicking that back to the creator of this application. We can then head over to the left hand side to the download section, go over to the right hand side to show in folder, drag this over to the desktop, navigate down to the fancontrol.zip, right click and select extract all. Select extract, double click on the folder, scroll down to fancontrol.exe and double click. Select more info, run anyway. Select yes. This will automatically open you into the assisted setup. So for this, what we need to do is navigate down to the bottom and select yes. We're then going to select all of these sensors we're going to point the program to. If there's anything in particular that you have added or want to have supported in the program, our recommendation would be to tick most boxes with inside of here and select OK. You'll more than likely be met with this message, select continue. Whilst it's going through this procedure, you'll more than likely be able to hear the fans on your PC start to go really high, then go down lower, and this will happen a few times as it goes through all of the individual sensors. Throughout the setup process, you may be notified that some RPM or fan speed sensors might be required on some of the individual fans. Don't worry too much about this, you can ignore this for now. Just select OK on this step. You'll then be given the options if you want to start the program with Windows automatically and to start the program minimized. We're then going to go to the top right hand side to maximize the program. For many of you watching, you'll more than likely also have GPU fans available inside of here if you are running on an Nvidia GPU. Unfortunately, if you are running on an RX 5000, 6000 or 7000 series AMD Radeon GPU, we will have to actually control the GPU fan speed ourselves, but it's very simple and easy to do, as those of you that are on those GPUs will typically have the AMD software installed where we can take control of the GPU fan speed ourselves. Before we do anything though, we're quickly going to change the program over to dark mode. Head up to the top left hand side to the three dots. This is also where you can support the creator of the program at any point if you decide that you're happy with this program and you get good usage out of it. You can also scroll down to find out more information on the program and the official website at any time. Inside of here, we're going to navigate down to themes and colors. At the top, I'm going to be changing this from light to dark on both sections. And just to make the program look a little bit prettier, I like to set the primary color to a sort of gray, and the secondary color, I like to set this to blue. Select OK, select back. So at the top for CPU fan, this will be the fan which is connected to your motherboard CPU header, and this will typically be your CPU fan. In some cases, this could be your all-in-one liquid cooler's pump, but in most scenarios, if you have set up your fans correctly with a fan controller, or just daisy chained them to the motherboard's fan headers, these will typically be your case fans. So just simply label these anything you'll remember. You may also have way more fans in here than I do. As you can see, I have system fan 1, system fan 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. As on this this system, I have 6 individual headers on this motherboard where I have fans connected to most of them. At the bottom, you can also see that this PC features an Nvidia RTX 3080 Ti, and that has been detected as it's an Nvidia GPU, so that's also listed with inside of here. Under your GPU, if you are running on an Nvidia GPU, you will more than likely see that there are 2 control sections for the fans. This will be for those of you running on 2-fan GPUs or 3-fan GPUs. Keep both of them available. So as you can see on this system, I have my CPU fan, my pump fan, system fan 1, 2, 3, 4 to 6, and all fans of my RTX 3080. Navigate down to the speed section. For any of the fans which are listed at 0 RPM and don't show an active RPM readout, I'd recommend selecting all of these, then selecting hide on the ones which are listed at 0 RPM. Any fans that do have RPM sensors on them, select those and uncheck hide on them. We're then going to unselect show hidden cards and unselect hide fan speed cards. Then you should only have the options available with inside of here, which are both your sensors and the fans in which are available to your system. At this point, once everything is cleaned up and out of the way, we can go to the bottom right hand side and select the plus button. You can experiment around with most of the fan curves with inside of this video, but we're only going to be focusing on a graph and a mixed fan curve, as this will be typically what most people will want to go with. First of all, start by adding a graph. In the first graph, we're going to be calling this CPU temp. What we're then going to do is go to the drop down menu to temperature source. Inside of this scroll down menu is going to be every single temperature sensor on your system, which you can point this graph to, like your CPU, your GPU, your VRAM. For those of you on Intel CPUs, you want to scroll down and find where it says CPU package, as this will be the entirety of the CPU temperature for the whole CPU itself. For those of you on Ryzen systems, you want to go to the drop down menu and find core TCTL/TDI and your CPU. With that set up, we then need to add another graph by going to the bottom right and selecting graph. This time we're going to be calling this one GPU temp. For the temperature source of the GPU temp, for AMD Radeon GPUs, you'll have both a GPU core and a GPU hotspot temperature. It's up to you which one of these you wish to go with, as the GPU hotspot will run hotter and will typically not be the GPU temperature which is reported inside of your games. For those of you on an Nvidia GPU, you'll typically only have one option available with inside of it, just marked GPU, and select that as your temperature source for your GPU temperature. We're then going to go to the left hand side to the flat curve example and delete this. So now we have 2 graphs set up for both the CPU and the GPU. Start with the CPU on the left hand side and go to edit. Now you will be able to set up multiple profiles after this, so you could have a silent profile, a maximum speed gaming profile, and a general use profile like me. So I'm first of all going to be creating my general fan curve, which I use typically all of the time. Before changing the fan curve, we're going to go up to the top. I recommend changing the hysteresis to 3. I then recommend changing the response time to either 2 or 3 seconds. As it states, the hysteresis value is the amount of degrees the target temperature source has to change before the fan curve changes in response to the temperature change. You could have it set to 2, but I will at least be using 3. You don't constantly want your fan speed changing for such small deviations, so I recommend going with 3. And response time is how quickly the fan curve can respond to the change in that temperature. So again, I like to go for 3. You could adjust these values. For the first dot for our general graph, I like setting this to 10%. So at all times, our system fans will at least be running at 10%, just bringing fresh air into the system and pushing hot air out. To add in an additional point in the graph, you just simply need to go into the line where you want the point and double click. At 40 degrees, I would then like my system to go up to 30% fan speed. At 60 degrees, I want to use 60% fan speed, so I'll double click and put a point there. And the end point of this graph is currently at 80 degrees, so 80 degrees we're using 100% of our fan speed. I want to make this a bit more aggressive, so I'm going to drag this over to the left. So if my PC manages to reach 70 degrees Celsius, we're then using 100% of the fan speed. You don't have to copy this graph, you can literally set the graph however you wish to do so. Once you have set the graph, head over to the right hand side to copy graph. Select OK, head over to your GPU temperature, hit edit, then hit paste, select OK. We then need to set up a mix graph. For this, go to the right hand side to plus once again, go and find mix. We're then going to set the function to maximum, head down to add fan curve, select CPU temp, add fan curve once again, GPU temp. Well, the mix graph will change which graph we're using on the left hand side, depending on which component, whether it be the CPU or GPU, is running hotter. So at the bottom of the mix graph right now, you can see that it's using the GPU temperature graph, as the GPU is at 39 degrees and our CPU is at 28. If I quickly use something like CPU-Z to put a load on the CPU, on the left hand side you will instantly see the CPU temperature has gone up, and you can see that the mix is now using the CPU temperature, as the CPU is now the hottest running device. Whichever the hottest item is will be the fan curve it will switch to dynamically to ensure that all components in your system are cooled properly when it's needed. At this point, you need to navigate up to the top to the control section and make sure that all fans available within inside of the control section are now both turned on. Go to the drop down menu for these and set the curve to mix for both of them. Heading over to my Nvidia PC, where I have a few more fans available and a GPU available, you can see that both my GPU fans have been set to mix. They've both been turned on alongside all of the other system fans, and we have our curve mix set up down here at the bottom. To save our profile, we can go to the top right hand side to the 3 dots, go to save configuration as, and name the config. I'm just going to be calling this General, hit Save. If you want to make changes to this profile at any time, make any of the changes. Once they've been made, go to the top right, then hit Save Configuration. So for my silent profile, all I like to do is navigate down to the bottom to the CPU temperature graph, and I like to make this a lot more reserved. But this will typically be the profile I would use when I'm browsing or recording videos, and I need my system to be quiet. Again, we're going to copy that graph at the top, select OK, head over to GPU temp, hit Edit, paste the graph. We're then going to save this profile by going to the top right, selecting Save Configuration As. I'm then going to call this Silent. Save. I like to also have set up a full speed fan profile. For this, navigate to the left hand side to edit. All we then simply need to do is just right click on the other points of the graph to delete them, drag our left hand graph all the way up to 100%, copy the graph, hit OK, go to GPU temp, edit, paste the graph, OK, go to the top right, save configuration as, and we'll just call this 100% speed, save. Then at any point, we can go to the top right hand side to change our profiles on the fly by hitting load configuration, where we have our general profile, silent profile, and 100% speed profile. Hit load, and you'll instantly hear the fan speed change on your system. As mentioned earlier on, for those of you running on AMD Radeon GPU, you'll still be able to set them as a GPU temperature target with inside of fan control, like I did here, but that will not actually control the fan speed of your GPU. All you need to do is set up one extra step. Right click on your desktop, open up the AMD software panel, navigate up to the performance tab at the top, head over to tuning. At the top, you'll need to make sure that you have manual tuning selected. We can then scroll down towards fan tuning. Enable fan tuning. We're then going to go to advanced control and switch this to the on position. For many of you watching, you may also have a 0 RPM feature available on your GPU, and in all honesty, I'd recommend switching this on, which will allow your system to run a lot quieter if you're not using any GPU power. Open up the fan control software, load your general config, head over to edit under CPU temperature, and I then want you to copy this graph as closely as possible inside of your Radeon software. So inside of the graph, we're using 30% fan speed at 40 degrees. To make this super simple, you can just use the dials by scrolling down. We can change the P2 to 40 degrees, where we'll use 30% fan speed. We're then using 60% fan speed at 60 degrees, 60% fan speed at 60 degrees, 70% fan speed at 65 degrees, and lastly at 70 degrees, 100% fan speed. So that closely matches the fan curve in which I set up earlier. You could choose to just max out these sliders if you want your GPU to run at 100% fan speed at all times, and you may want to come back and experiment around with adjusting this slider. Once you are happy with your fan curve, go to the top right hand side to apply the settings. I would then recommend saving this profile. Go to the top, the desktop file, just call this AMD fans, select save. Then whenever you boot into your system, fan controller software will automatically boot and run your general profile. To jump into your AMD Radeon software when you boot, hit load profile, desktop, then select AMD fans.xml, open, proceed, and you're then good to go. If at any point you make any drastic changes to your PC setup, like adding in or removing extra fans, switching out graphics cards, it's always recommended to take yourself to the top left hand side to the spanner icon next to controls, where you can then run through the assisted setup once again. Another recommended step in which you can take to adjust the speed in which the fans speed up or slow down, navigate up to the top to the individual fans in which you have control over. Click on this drop down menu. This will show you the percentage the fan speed will increase per second until it reaches the percentage it's supposed to be at. So let's say, for example, my fans are currently at 10% speed and they need to speed up to 100%. Well, this will then increase the fan speed by 8% every second, in this case taking roughly 11 seconds to reach 100% fan speed. The higher you set the percentage, the smoother the transition will be when the fan speed either increases or decreases, and this can be quite good, especially if you don't want any drastic noise changes in your room. But I personally like to set this to 12% on both the step up and the step down. Remember, you'll need to go to the right hand side and set this to all the other fans you have on your system, and remember to save this to your config by going to the top right hand side to the three dots and selecting save configuration. For those of you that want to avoid using the fan control software for any reason and you would like to take control of your Nvidia GPU fans, you're going to want to utilize MSIafterburner to do this. Most people watching this video will more than likely have MSIafterburner installed already. If you don't, take yourself over to Google search MSIafterburner. Navigate down to download Afterburner. Program could be laid out slightly differently as it may be using a different skin. If that is the case, just simply navigate around until you find a settings icon, go to the bars at the top, go to the right hand side to user interface, and I recommend selecting the MSI Cyborg Afterburner skin white by Drerex Design. Navigate over to the settings cog once again, fan, and we're going to enable user defined software automatic control. You'll then be given a fan curve. Now, whether you decided to follow along with the previous steps or not from the BIOS, you could choose to match your BIOS fan curve, but for the GPU I'd recommend setting something quite a bit more aggressive, as the GPU will typically run a lot hotter. You can set this curve up however you wish to do so, but one thing I would 100% recommend that you do is to ensure that you are using 100% of your fan speed at 70 to 75 degrees. GPUs can run hotter than this, but you ideally don't want them to, as they will start to dial back their clock speed, which will in turn decrease performance. This is the fan curve in which I personally like to set. It means if my GPU reaches 60 degrees, it's going to ramp up the fans to 100% fan speed regardless of anything. Once you've set up your curve, all you need to do is navigate down to the bottom, select apply, and OK. Inside of MSI MSIafterburner, navigate down to the fan speed controller, set this to auto to the point where you cannot adjust this notch. You should then be able to see your fan speed moving. Go to the bottom, select apply. What you'll then need to do is go to the bottom right, select the save icon, then click on any of the profiles. Boot up some games, boot up some heavy workloads, see what the temperature of your GPU reaches and see if you're happy with the noise levels. If you are happy, another thing you can do instead of MSIafterburner is to navigate down and select the startup button, then select the settings cog, navigate over to general properties and select start with Windows and start minimized. That way this fan profile will automatically kick in whenever the PC is booted. You'll never have to worry about it again and it will automatically be set every single time you turn the PC on. For those of you that may have MSIafterburner installed to your system and you are using the fan control software with an Nvidia GPU, you don't want MSIafterburner interfering. I would recommend navigating inside of MSIafterburner, heading to the settings cog, going to fan and ensuring that enable user defined software control is not selected. Select apply, select OK, and just take control of your fans through fan control. Another important step in which I would recommend for those of you running on AIO or custom liquid cooling is to try and identify your pump fan from the rest of the fans on your system. So as you can see for me, I have CPU fan, system fan 1, system fan 2. Your pump fan won't automatically be labeled like mine is. I know my pump fan is on my pump fan header, which is my second CPU header, so I know that this is my pump fan. For those of you running on AIO liquid coolers, it's not recommended to constantly change the speed of your pump fan, nor is it recommended to run the pump fan at 100% speed all of the time. Navigate over to the pump, go to the top right, select manual control, and I would then recommend setting a manual speed toggle for the CPU pump. In most scenarios, I recommend setting this to about 50%. You could go higher if you wish to do so, and leave the rest of the fans on the mix. The only time you could run into issues with this is if you're using liquid coolers such as the Arctic Freezer 2 in its default configuration. It will typically only have one header that comes off the entire system. This is because the pump and all of the fans on the system have been daisy chained up, so you only have one connector coming off, or potentially two if you have RGB. In this scenario, what you would need to do if you do really want to take manual control of that pump independently from the rest of the AIO fans is you would need to find the pump connector coming off of the CPU block, disconnect this from the daisy chain, hook the rest of the fans up on its own daisy chain, where you'll then have two outputs that you can independently put on two different headers of the motherboard. Finally, if for any reason you wish to revert all of these settings back to the default stock settings, get rid of the fan controller software and revert your system back to as if you never watched this video or followed any steps. First of all, for those of you with the fan control software, you need to go to the top left hand side, make sure that you unselect the option to start minimized and start with Windows. With that completed, what we'll then do is exit out of the software, go to the bottom right hand side to your task icon tray. If the software is still running, right click and select exit. We'll then navigate over to the folder where we installed fan control, which is here for me. Go back, select the entire folder, right click, then select delete. Make sure that you then clear that from your recycling bin. That will be the fan control software completely uninstalled from your system. It will no longer boot and change your fan profile whenever you boot up. And there you guys have it. Remember, if you have used any third-party software in this video, please do consider supporting the creators and developers of those programs, as it will help them out tremendously to help support further development and new updates coming out in the future, and just to show your appreciation for the convenience of having software available like this. And if you have any other additional tips and tricks you would like to recommend, make sure to leave them down there as well. If you have enjoyed this video and would like to see how to get more out of your system completely free of charge, I'd recommend checking out the video on screen now.